By Monday morning, the painting Elena had almost left face down against her kitchen wall was gone. The woman who bought it never asked the price. She asked, "Who painted that face?" That landed harder than the sale. Elena cleaned offices at night, 12 floors after the people in tailored jackets had gone home. She wiped down glass doors, straightened conference chairs, and emptied bins full of half-finished lunches and important-looking papers. After midnight, she rode the bus home, pulled canvases from beside her table, and painted the people nobody looked at. Once their shift ended, bus drivers, cashiers, housekeepers, delivery men. Not while they were serving. After. When the smile was gone, and the body had already given the day what it wanted. She never posted the work, never built a site. At the church basement show that weekend, the card beneath the painting said only one thing: Elena. So when her neighbor called during her break and said, breathless, "It sold," Elena thought that was the surprise. It wasn't. A second message came with a photo. The buyer stood in front of the portrait with one hand over her mouth, staring at it like it had caught her off guard. Elena knew that face immediately. Almost anyone would have. A celebrity. Then the next message arrived. "She wants to see the rest." That was the sentence that changed the stakes. At that moment, Elena was standing outside a supply closet with a roll of trash bags under one arm and 6 floors still left to clean. All night, one thought followed her from office to office. What happens when someone important sees the part of you you've kept hidden on purpose? By the time she got home, the canvases leaning against her wall no longer looked like a private habit. They looked dangerous. Then her phone lit up with an unknown number. She almost let it ring out. For 1 second she thought, maybe if she stayed still enough, life would return to its usual size. The bleach on her hands, the late bus, the canvases turned inward, the safety of being tired and unknown. Then she answered. A calm woman's voice said, "I'm sorry to call so late. I asked your neighbor for your number. I hope that wasn't inappropriate." Elena sat down without meaning to. The woman said quieter now, "I haven't stopped thinking about that painting." Elena looked at the stack against the wall. The bus driver with her shoulders finally dropped, the cashier pressing her thumb into the heel of her hand, the housekeeper on the edge of a bathtub, one shoe off, too tired to arrange her face for anyone else. "I was wondering," the woman said, "if I could come by tomorrow evening and see the rest. Just me." Just me should have made it easier. It didn't. Money would have made sense. Publicity would have made sense. Private sincerity was harder to hide from. Elena looked around her apartment, the cracked chair, the dishes by the sink, the bad light, the smallness of the room. She almost said no. Instead, she heard herself say, "All right." The next day she regretted it in waves. On the bus home, no. Clearing old envelopes off the table, absolutely not. Turning each painting toward the room. What if the first one had been the only one? When the knock finally came, Elena froze in the kitchen with a rag still in her hand. Then she crossed the room and opened the door. The woman had come alone. No assistant, no publicist, no security, no one filming the moment before it had even become real. That was the first thing Elena noticed. The second was how quietly the woman stepped inside, as if she understood the room had not been arranged for strangers. She moved to the nearest canvas and stopped. This was the real test now. Not whether a famous person had loved one painting in a church basement. whether the attention held when there were many. The woman did not skim. She stood in front of each piece with the same patience Elena had used to make it. At the fourth canvas, Elena understood something important. The woman was not hunting for the most impressive painting. She was trying to understand what connected all of them. Then she stopped in front of the portrait Elena had almost kept turned to the wall, the housekeeper on the edge of a bathtub, one shoe off, her face no longer arranged for anyone else. "That one," the woman said softly, "is difficult to leave." Elena folded her arms without meaning to. "Because it looks unfinished?" The woman turned. "No," she said, "because she is." A few minutes later, still looking at the paintings, the woman asked, "What do they all have in common?" Elena looked around the room. The bus driver still in uniform. The cashier with the register still in her posture. The housekeeper too tired to pretend she was fine. The man in work boots sitting on the edge of a bed, still dressed because even changing had become one task too many. Then Elena answered with the truest sentence she had. "They're people after work." The woman turned fully toward her. There it was. No polished artist statement, no borrowed theory, no expensive language, just the nerve of it. People after work. Then the woman asked, "Why have so few people seen them?" She picked up the label card from the church basement show. One word, Elena. "Have you ever shown these under your full name?" she asked. A memory arrived before the answer. Forms on a folding table, a manager stumbling over Elena Maris, then shortening it, because that was easier for everyone else. First name on the work list. First name on the badge. First name on the card beside the painting. What had started as convenience had turned into camouflage. Finally, Elena said, "No." The woman looked from the paintings to Elena. "I think that has cost the work something," she said. Then she set the card on the kitchen table between them. "These deserve the whole name, and so do you." That could have been the whole ending. It wasn't. The woman bought 3 paintings, quietly, carefully, without bargaining, without performance. Then, standing at the door, she asked, "Would you let me show them to someone?" Elena tightened her grip on the back of the chair. "Who?" "A curator," the woman said. "Someone thoughtful. Someone who won't clean the life out of these." For the first time that evening, Elena almost laughed. Then she looked at the paintings. Then at the card on the table. Staying hidden had protected her. It had also been teaching the work to disappear with her. So she said yes. The gallery opening happened 11 months later. Under the portrait nearest the entrance, in clean black type, was the name, Elena Maris. Not Elena, not anonymous, her whole name. People entered wearing the polite expression people use when they expect to appreciate something responsibly and move on. Then they slowed. A man in an expensive suit stood in front of the bus driver portrait so long his wife had to circle back for him. A younger woman stopped at the cashier painting and lifted her hand to her mouth in the same gesture the celebrity had made at the church basement show. And then 2 housekeepers arrived together, still in work shoes, shoulders carrying that end-of-shift heaviness Elena could recognize across any room. They stood in front of the bathtub portrait without speaking. Nearly a minute passed. Then one of them exhaled and whispered, "That's exactly how it feels." That mattered more than any review that came later, because Elena had not spent years painting for approval. She had spent years painting against erasure. And now the erasure was failing in public, Late in the evening, someone asked if Elena wanted to say a few words. She almost refused. Then she looked once more at the wall label nearest her. Elena Maris, whole, unhidden. So she stepped forward. The room softened into silence. "Thank you for being here," she said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. These are people most of us are trained not to look at for very long. Not because they are invisible, because looking properly asks something from us. Stillness spread through the room. "I painted them at the end of the day," she said. "After the shift, after the smile people ask for, after the part that makes everyone else comfortable." Then she said, "The line people would carry out of the room with them. Work is what they did. It was never all they were." No one moved. Elena stepped back. No flourish, no sermon, no attempt to stretch the moment once it had landed. And the celebrity, who had stood in front of cameras, stages, and every kind of rehearsed applause, looked at Elena, then at the paintings, and for once had no words at all. Her eyes filled. She smiled once, small, stunned, and said nothing. By the end of the night, strangers were still standing in front of Elena's work beneath her full name. That was the ending. The people she painted were no longer being passed by. Neither was she. If you've ever known someone the world only valued for what they could do, say their name in the comments. And if you believe quiet dignity deserves to be seen before permission arrives, pass this story on. This channel is for the people who should have been looked at properly the first time.